Right, Justine, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast today. How you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, it's great to connect with you again. And we were talking before, like we were just talking about like emotions and mindset, and you was like, talking about how people experience adverse emotions, and where do you want to kind of start with it?
So I wanted to talk about why we get these adverse emotions. Where do they come from, and what are they trying to teach us? So, adverse emotions are things like anxiety, fear, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, panic, worrying about the future, all these sorts of things that can come up, stress, burnout, all of these sorts of things. And I've been on a very long journey in order to try and almost get to the solution of why these emotions arise. Why is it that they come up? Because our emotions only tend to appear when they're needing to tell us something, they're needing to identify with us, something that we need to work on about ourselves, something that we maybe haven't healed from. It could be a trauma response that we've gone through. It could be something that we're not dealing with. It could be something that we are suppressing. And it's really important to understand what these emotions are trying to tell us. And it's also quite vital that we don't repress the emotions when we experience them. Because when we start to repress our emotions, we can end up pushing it further into our subconscious mind, which causes us to get to a place where we have like almost like a backlog of healing that we need to do in order to move us forwards. So things like if we go through a bad life experience, that can cause us adverse emotions. That can cause our mind to, every time we encounter a similar situation, our mind goes into fight or flight and goes, right, we need to panic. So let's protect her by, or him by, producing anxiety, producing stress, these sorts of things. And ultimately, a lot of the time, these emotions go back to, yes, experiences that we've had, but they also go back to childhood situations as well. So let's say, for example, I spent most of my life until recently sort of not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough. And actually, what that was coming from was a place of that coming from what I'd learned as a child growing up. I very much was around a lot of fear, a lot of environmental conditioning that was making me feel like I wasn't worthy, wasn't good enough. I was always comparing myself to people. And that really did come from my childhood. So that caused a lot of insecurity and a lot of negative emotions towards myself, and actually stopped me from progressing forwards. So in order to recognize these emotions, we have to recognize where they've come from initially. What is it that's triggered those emotions? Where has it come from? And there's a really, really effective way that you can do this. And it's through journaling initially, where when you are faced with a challenging emotion, so it could be anxiety, fear, not feeling good enough, starting to feel very overwhelmed, it's about saying, right, where is this coming from? And literally ask yourself the question and say, where is this emotion coming from? Your subconscious will only answer you, believe it or not, when you ask it a question. If you try to say to yourself right now, I want to know the answer to this, your conscious mind will step in the way, and that will stop you from being able to get the truth behind behind the situation. So it's really important to ask yourself the question, right, where is this emotion triggering from? Write down what the emotion is. Say it might be anger, it might be stress, it might be sadness, whatever it is. Write down that emotion, then ask yourself, where is this emotion coming from? And what will happen is your brain will automatically show you a memory of where that emotion has come from. And it could be multiple memories. So it's really important to capture everything that you get shown and write it down. And what will happen is if you do this every day for, say, maybe 3 weeks, you'll start to recognize a pattern of where the emotions have stemmed from, where they are, escalating from. What is it that's the content behind those emotions? And then you can look at ways to fix it. Things like anxiety and focusing on areas like that, it tends to be having your head in the future. You're worrying about what's coming up, you're overthinking things, and that's creating you to come from that place. And then it starts to turn into stress, and then stress can turn into burnout. And then before we know it, we might be bedridden because we're not well. So it's really, really important to be fully aware and have that level of awareness at the beginning of what it is that we're being faced with. So when you sort of go through those situations and you go, right, okay, I've established that it's anxiety, or I've established that it's this, it's about being able to understand, right, why is it I've got this anxiety? Where is this? What is the root cause behind this? It's not I'm anxious, there's a root cause behind that emotion. Every single emotion that triggers you will be coming from a place of a deeper root cause. So it's about being able to identify that, and then you can start to manage your emotions better. For me personally, I've used holistic therapies to help me with my emotions and to help others as well. So there's a tapping technique called EFT, which is emotional freedom tapping, and it's really powerful if you want to eradicate negative or challenging emotions. And what you do is you've got 9 tapping points on your body. So you've got the top of the head, you've got here, you've got under your eye, side of your, so where your temples are. You've also got here, on your chin, under your collarbone, the sides of your body, either side, and also here, which is called karate chop. And what you do is if you tap on all these different points, it helps you to release emotional blockages. And if you're feeling very sad or very upset, it's best to focus on the top. If you're feeling anxious or stressed, you focus under the collarbone. And if you're trying to rewire your subconscious mind because you want to change the way that you are with your thinking, your perspectives, because you know that's the problem, you know it's a mindset issue, then it's all about tapping into your subconscious, which is this point here. And the way to do that is, say, for example, right now, your mind is wired in a way where your thoughts might be saying, I'm not good enough, or I don't feel this, or I'm anxious, or that sort of thing. It's about saying, right, well, in order to appease the subconscious mind, we have to tap into the subconscious mind in a language it understands. And the only way to do that is by tapping on this point and saying something along the lines of, even though I'm anxious, I'm really anxious right now, I know that this feeling will pass and I am good enough, because your subconscious will not connect with you with your language unless it understands what you're saying. It's a bit like, suppose, talking to a child, but EFT is a very, very sure way, as well as deep breathing techniques, to eliminate challenging emotions and be able to manage them. It takes time to rewire your subconscious mind. It's absolutely possible to eliminate anxiety and stress and fear and anger and all of these sorts of things. You can eradicate them like forever, but you have to build in this practice daily, and you have to be consistent with it so that you can therefore change your thought pattern. It's about initially dealing with the emotion and really coping with it and managing it, but it's also about managing it on a level that works for you. And what I mean by that is, if, say, for example, you're coming from a place of anger, it's about addressing why you're angry, healing why you're angry, if that makes sense. And then it's about being able to rewire your subconscious mind. When you rewire the mind, you can then create the new thought pattern, and then the old programming and the old thought patterns can then move out of the way, and then the emotions will move on as well with that. So I just wanted to mention that because it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, no, I really agree with what you said. And I think like with EFT is a really, really great way of helping people, with anxiety, like I said, through tapping on those, points in your body. And, you know, it's really effective. And I think people, like you said, have to go into their emotions. They have to be consistent with that. They need to keep doing that and be open to that as well. And I think it's really effective, because I think a lot of people experience a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. They might not really want to talk to people, and they can do that themselves. They know that technique. They can rewire their emotions by in the mind, through doing that. And I think, like you said, with you mentioned at the start, like emotions and how they can build up, and people it can manifest in people with stress, with anxiety, with many and even health problems. It all leads, if you don't deal with things, and things are there on the surface and you push it down. It's almost like trying to get like an inflatable ball underwater. It's like kind of pushing
Yeah,
that down.
exactly.
And unless you deal with it, then you're probably always going to feel stressed, or certain behaviors or emotions are going to always rise. And I think
Absolutely.
through using that technique and kind of approaching it in the right way, you can kind of deal with that. So, I mean, if you don't do that, then they'll probably be triggered all the time. And like you said, sometimes people might do it automatically, not even realize
Yep.
that they're doing something because of X, Y, Z that may
Yeah,
have even happened, years ago.
absolutely. And the thing is, one thing that we're taught as children, certainly from my generation, was just get over it. just deal with it. Oh, just forget about it, and that those sort of phrases are repressing your emotions. They're telling you to repress your emotions. Like when anxiety comes in or fear comes up, you've got to welcome it in. As bizarre as that sounds, you've got to welcome that emotion in, and as if it's a person walking into the room, and acknowledge it. You don't have to engage in it, you have to acknowledge it, and send that emotion. If you want to do visualization, it's really powerful, like visualizing that emotion as a person. And you send that love and healing, you send kindness to that emotion, and you talk it out. Because what you're doing is you're causing that emotion to go, oh, okay, I don't need to react like this anymore. I don't need to present myself in this way anymore, because actually this is the reason why it keeps coming up. And if we acknowledge the anxiety, we acknowledge the fear, we deal with it, then it's highly unlikely it's going to come back round again. And if it comes back round in a different way, it's because there's more healing to do. Healing comes in layers. It's not a case of, oh, it's okay, I went through that trauma, I healed once, and now I'm solved. It doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, healing is something you have to do repeatedly, and sometimes approach it from different angles in order to heal it on a deeper level and eliminate it completely. I think what we're not taught when we're younger is that when you go through an experience that's traumatic, you're not taught to heal in that moment. And actually then what you're doing is you're just suppressing it, and then you're wondering why 10 years later it suddenly rears its ugly head in your mind, and you're in your emotions. There's a really powerful doctor out there called Dr. Joe Dispenza, which people might have heard of. And what he talks about is that your thoughts create your emotions create your behaviors, and then your behaviors create your actions, and then your actions actually create your personality trait. So you might see, you might meet someone in your lifetime that was really bubbly and really outgoing, and then suddenly they become flat, and they're not themselves anymore. And that's because what they've done is they've let their trauma build through this cycle and end up as a personality trait. So it's really important to make sure that we address these issues when they come in. And sometimes for those that might have repressed their emotions, they don't want to go down that road because it's opening a can of worms, because they know there's a lot that's going to be released. But you know what? When you go through releasing, it may feel uncomfortable initially, but when you release and you come out the other side, it is a huge sigh of relief, and you're able to move forwards in a really positive direction. And you will probably look back on that release and be like, actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And it's so important to do this releasing on a regular basis, so that you can actually get to where you want to be with your mind and everything, really.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really important and essential. Like you said, things can really be triggered, and like like how everything's kind of linked, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors. And if you are pushing something to the side, then it may manifest itself in behaviors later on in the future. And I
Yeah.
think, or if something happens in that person's life, then they may be fine, but then they might not know how to deal with it, and then whatever they push aside becomes this behavior, or they become
Absolutely.
triggered. And I think you see a lot of that in like it happens to lots of people, but particularly celebrities. You see them, they're out there, and next minute they're on a downward spiral. And I think that's kind of probably ties into what you said. And
Absolutely.
I was just thinking as well, like I was just thinking about things that I've experienced in my past, and how we can get triggered sometimes, and sometimes even now, if something like a confrontation or something happens, say between me and someone, or a disagreement,
Yeah.
I particularly get triggered and instantly feel like fight or flight, and then
Yeah.
like instantly, and I was almost like triggered, and when I thought about it, it then stemmed back to school, and what I was kind of in school, I was in fight or flight a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
then that situation I was presented with now, even though I'm 27,
Mm.
reminded me of
Yeah.
situations that I've been in the past, and I had all these emotions come up, and then I was like, oh gosh, what is this?
Yeah.
And then trying to ground yourself. Do you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
that just reminded me of what you said, if that makes sense.
I'm just going to mention a grounding technique actually, because that's
Yeah.
really and that takes me on to my next point, is that when we are feeling really overwhelmed and heightened emotions, it's really important to be able to know how to ground our energy so that we can actually get to a better place with our mindset. And there are many different grounding techniques you can do. You can do ones that maybe might be a bit more wooey, which is where you visualize tree roots growing out of your feet and into the ground. The more practical ways of doing things as well is doing things like getting out in nature and placing your feet on the earth and just really breathing in that nature and that energy. And also doing things like just holding onto an object. So just holding on even like a pen, or you can hold on to a table and really hold on to that object and really take in what that object feels like, what it looks like, and that sort of thing, and how your senses react to that object. Because what you're doing is you're bringing yourself into the present moment. The minute you bring yourself into the present moment, you ground your energy and you get yourself to the point where you need to be, where you're in the here and now. And that's really important to be able to alleviate overwhelmed feelings and emotions that may be coming up. But it's just really important to recognize these emotions, and also even understanding, right, if your triggers for those emotions are actually your environment. So for example, where you're working, you might be, like as you mentioned, celebrities, they might be in industries that don't actually serve their mental health well as they are. And actually, maybe it's time to step away from those things and do something that's more suited to your mental health and well-being. So it's also important to understand that from that perspective too.
Yeah, there's so many layers to it, isn't there? It's not just the person's mental health and their emotions, it's what's happened, the environment, the
Yep.
people they're around. All of these contribute to how that person's feeling at that time. And
Yep.
I had a similar conversation with someone who was going through something, and they were saying, that I might have to leave where I am because of the location of where something may have happened, and
Okay.
triggers in that location, and it's really complex, isn't it, when you break it down? And if you think really severe things have happened to somebody in that particular place, they're gonna probably be triggered by being there.
Yeah.
It's all these layers to it. It's not just like one thing, is it? Which probably makes the person, people even more stressed out
Yeah.
as
There's a
well.
quote, really interesting quote that I learned over the years. And the quote is, I don't even know who it was by, but it was a quote where it says, "You cannot heal in the environment where you got sick." So and you know what, that really hit a really strong point with me, because I was like, that's so true. Like, if you're in a situation that's really challenging you, if it's all good and well dealing with the emotions, but if you're in something that really doesn't serve you positively, whether it's people, whether it's the job, whether it's social, no matter what it is, it's really, really vital that you address that. And even if the changes don't happen straight away, like if you were trying to move jobs or something, it's still about putting those wheels in motion to move away from that situation and be able to get yourself to a better place. It's really, really important to do that.
I think COVID's definitely highlighted that on a lot of people, because a lot of people are changing jobs and a lot of people are changing their situation, aren't they? Really, and I think
Yeah. Yes.
I think it really made me think, because I was in. There's nothing wrong with hospitality, but I did it for a while. Then when this happened, it's a stressful job anyway. Then when you put a pandemic on top of it, it gets even more escalated. And I
Yeah.
think people have kind of rethought and kind of redesigned their lives, and kind of reevaluated things. And like you said, it is possible to transition from that
Absolutely.
one place to the next. And I really like what you said about, you can't heal in a place where, that's making you sick, I think you said, or that,
Yeah. Right.
you have to remove yourself from that place if possible. But no,
And
I really,
sorry to cut you
yeah.
off, putting yourself into isolation as well,
Mm,
as much as it's not a tempting thing to do, when you put yourself into taking time out for you, spending time on yourself away from anything and everybody and just being completely on your own, you can really start to see what's not working in your life. And I think, as negative as COVID has been, I think one huge positive from COVID has been helping people to see what doesn't serve them any longer, and actually helping them to move away from those things and live a better life for them.
yeah. No, I completely agree. I completely agree. And I think it's so vital that people do that, really, if they want a better life, they can choose to do that if they want to. And it's like, if someone else has done it, then why can't someone else? And
Yeah.
no, I really, really think it's so important, the things we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And like, is there anything that you're working on now? Because remember you said you're doing a course, you're doing like a workshop kind of thing.
Yeah. So I have a Facebook group on Facebook, and it's all about holistic wellness. It's a holistic and wellness community group, and within that group, I've been doing lives every Wednesday and every Sunday on different topics. Wednesdays primarily is to do with well-being. Sundays is more the spiritual side, and I've also been doing lives every Saturday in the build up to a massive workshop that I'm doing on the 25th of August. This workshop is all about understanding anxiety, stress management, and burnout, and being able to understand how to end the burnout completely and really get an in-depth learning on all those sorts of areas in order to help you to move forwards emotionally and to be able to come from a place of peace and calm every day and know how to manage these emotions whilst helping yourself to reprogram your subconscious mind so that you can move forwards in the right direction. And I've got so many freebies and things to give away in this workshop. I've got Wellbeing Toolkit, which involves you getting a 30-day steps to wellbeing journal prompts, and we also get an emotions worksheet, which is all about establishing what your emotions are, what you're facing, understanding your triggers, and being able to journal it through this worksheet to enable you to move forwards with patterns and behaviors that aren't serving you. And also, I've also created an ebook to help you with holistic ways to cope with anxiety, stress, and burnout and preventing it. And also you get discounts on my services if you attend my workshop. So if you refer a friend to my workshop, you get £10 off my services. So yeah, I've got one on the 25th of August, and I've decided to repeat this on the 30th of September as well, both in the evenings from 7 to 8, so that you have the opportunity to attend one or the other, or even both if you want to have a replay. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. And yes, it'd be lovely to see you there.
Yeah. No, I love that. I really, love what you're doing, and that you're really wanting to help other people as well. And I think it's really vital that, people, seek help and they attend, workshops like yours, because, you put a lot of time and energy into, creating them and, wanting to help other people. And, I really think you post awesome content, and I
Thank
just
you.
think it's really great that people can, you're welcome. I think it's grateful that it's great that people can just drop in, and just slot in a bit of time. Are you doing this world? What is it? Is it globally? Is it just in the UK?
Yeah,
Can people?
it's online, so anyone from all over the world can attend. And it's UK time on the 25th is 7 p.m. to 8:30. And the reason why it's 90 minutes is because I will be doing 60 minutes of going into all the depth about anxiety, stress management, and ending the burnout. And then there's 30 minutes at the end of the session to be able to ask any question you like. And it's almost like a group coaching session at the end. So anything that wants to be asked can be asked. Yeah, so really good value, really good content.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome, and I'll definitely share that for you and put it out there. And I wish you all the best and everything that you're doing. And where can we also find you on Instagram, like like tag and things like that?
Yep. So I'm on Instagram. It's at Justine Markly Believe in You. What we can do is tag it in the comments on this podcast. And yeah, I'm also on Facebook with my community group, which I can also tag. But if you find me on Instagram, I've got my Linktree link, and it's got everything on there. So it's got my services, it's got my workshops, it's also got my Facebook group as well.
Oh, that's awesome. It's awesome. But it's great to connect with you again. And
Yeah.
I wish you all the best in everything you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Take care.